I can see. Hmm. Look at that page. As soon as you show up, other people show up. There he is. Paige told me that I could tell you that it was her fault that you're not coming here. So it's Paige's fault. It's just a matter of time. That's all. Exactly. The best course, therefore, is to remain silent, as Bhagavan would say. What's the difference between astronomy and cosmology? Or is there any difference? Oh. Hmm. So astronomy is just looking. I mean, you couldn't really have astronomy without, what would be the point of astronomy if you didn't have cosmology? Like, what conclusions are you trying to get to with astronomy? So I think we're really onto something here, man. If the telescopes, so if the technology, being the telescopes in this case, if they're actually projecting directly from the potential, right? It's unmanifest. It's just potential. And if you're always looking past things, right? So physics is looking at things. So they already have an idea in their mind what they're looking for. So the technology, when it interacts with that consciousness, it has an idea what it's looking for to provide the narrative. But if you guys are always looking past things, Yeah, but it's the same thing. Looking between things is looking past the things, right? So what I'm saying is that if you don't know what you're if you don't know if you don't have in your consciousness an idea of what that technology is supposed to provide for a narrative, then it doesn't know either. And that's, I think, why your entire all of astronomy right now is just in a big kerfuffle because nothing seems to be aligning anymore, right? So the James Webb Telescope is the new technology that's looking projecting new stuff, but it doesn't know what to project because you guys don't have it in your consciousness, right? And then what's going on now is then it's kind of like just finding a happy medium, right? Like two temperatures coming to an agreement on a unified temperature. What's going on with the James Webb's telescope and astronomers is trying to come to an agreement with what's going to appear. There's nothing there, right? There's not something there that's being detected. Like we need to be, I think, trying to find out why things are appearing the way they are rather than how they are appearing the way they are. I don't know. Right. So what's the process that generates the fractal? I believe it's just awareness coming back onto itself. That if you apply that in some manner, it's going to explain everything. So the resolution is infinite until you get uh, until you get to the equation itself, right? Like once you reveal the process itself, then that's it, right? It's the real thing, the important thing isn't the fractal that's being projected, it's the process that projects the fractals coming back onto itself, reiteration. Like how would you go about proving that something is being projected rather than detected? If you could do that, you might get a Nobel Prize, right? And that, yeah, that applies to particle physics as well as gravity. There's something about there's a connection between gravity and attention. So YouTube now has on certain videos, I think, there's a bar at the bottom that indicates where people have viewed the most time they've spent viewing on a certain video, like this, right? Like waves. So if a person clicks on a video and they see that most people go to zoom fast forward to a certain spot, then automatically for some reason a person wants to go see what everyone else finds so interesting. So that is a self-enforcing, it might not be anything there, right? There might not be anything interesting or out of the ordinary in that video, except that it told people that came there that other people have looked here. And that's enough to just get other people to look there. And that, of course, makes it more, right? It just, so that I believe is expressing gravity, right? The clumpiness, like cities, how things clump together like that. That's almost like the collapse of the wave function. If everyone just went there first, it would be like this, right? It would be, so there's something about how awareness coming back onto itself generates gravity. Its attention draws more attention. And that's like a black hole, right? When the gravity just keeps positive reinforcement on itself. We've got to simplify all this because going into complexity has not worked. They have to zoom out and find the the biggest picture because it's holographic. So once you find the picture, it doesn't matter where you look, you'll always see that picture. I don't know if a black hole is a place where no distinction is made or can be made, or if there's a difference. Maybe a black hole is a holographic expression of basically enlightenment where there's no distinction made. Well, black holes are death and white holes are life, and those are the two. No, not life, I'm sorry, birth. Black holes are death, white holes are birth, and those are the poles of the potential. A birth represents the beginning of a new iteration, and the death represents the conclusion of that iteration. But what is it that's iterating? That's the big question. And that's just being. Yeah, so dreamless sleep is almost like a little black hole. And I don't feel that that's necessary. So if there is if there is some sort of choice, if there is some sort of free will, then the word potential is far better than the word nothing to express that, right? Because potential implies a choice. It's like you could do this, but you don't have to do this, right? So you could engage in the game, but you don't have to. See, James thinks that it's necessary, and I keep saying it's not. The game is unnecessary, and the word potential implies the choice to engage in the game or not. And that's probably the fundamental, essential choice. Probably the only choice that exists is whether to engage in the game or not. And then that fundamental, essential choice, the holographic expression of that in this realm is what we take to be free. But it's not. It's an appearance. It's an expression of the fundamental choice to play in the game or not. And we could frame that in terms of energy as well. Uh, the reason why humanity requires so much energy is because everything it does is in opposite, it's pushing against the natural flow of the universe. And that requires energy and generates anxiety and generates all of the emotions, probably. But when you transcend thought and the I, then you're in perfect synchronicity with the unfolding of the universe, which is effortless and requires no energy. So we have everything backwards. Humanity is completely fucked. Like, we need to recognize, first of all, humanity needs to recognize how unnatural it is that we are cancer and everything that we do is basically wrong. So everything we do basically is wrong. Like all of these worlds are just crashing into each other. That's how I see it, is that every person is its own white hole or singularity of its own world, and they overlap in the collective consciousness, which is, I guess, what people agree upon is objective reality. But in reality, they're all separate worlds, and they're all disjointed and pushing against each other, and that's why we're doomed. And that's why we're so unnatural. Nature is working in symbiosis, and we're working against that. Like, people don't go deep enough. None of these thinkers, whether they're physicists or philosophers, they don't go deep enough. They don't want to go as deep as it requires to find out what the problem is, where the problem is. It's the voice in the head. It doesn't matter what system that voice is projecting and propagating, it's all wrong. The voice in the head is lying. That's it. But no one wants to go that far. Not even Advaitists. Like, even people like the other SS there. He doesn't want to go that far. He doesn't want to go as far as Ramana. He doesn't teach very often about Ramana. he rarely talks about Mona, about the silence. Yeah. Yeah, we've accepted it in, right? Human consciousness has already accepted the virus in. So if a person identifies as being human with the collective human consciousness, then we've already been infected, and it's just running rampant. Unchecked. It's just unchecked. And academia is the most fertile ground for it to grow. And that's what all of humanity is based on, academia. Like, I believe this is as close to omniscience as you can possibly get. It's just, it's all so clear. Human consciousness itself is bifurcating right now, and there's us that are taking the natural route of evolution, and then there's the 99% that are going the unnatural route of devolution. Still not sure if devolution is a word, but falling deeper into delusion. Unfortunately, this can happen, and it is. It's just, yeah. And these are big iterations, right? Like, relatively speaking, billions of years, hundreds of millions of years. Like, oh, can you imagine just starting from scratch again, just being reborn into the digital, into basically a literal video game, and having the same questions and just starting over. Just, oh man, like, we people don't understand how important everything is. Everything. There's nothing but the game. It's the purpose is the game. The purpose is not to survive and believe that you're a biological organism, or that you, that the illusion is real. There's that's not the way to realize your immortality. I listen to the most listened to academics when they talk about physics and the true nature of reality and all their theories. And the irony of it is that those who are the deepest into academia are actually the most delusional. They're going to be the hardest to break out of their delusion because they completely believe in thought, right? It's the religion, academia is the religion that worships the voice in the head. So when they're the irony of it is beautiful because those who believe that they are the smartest and wisest are actually the most delusional. Like as delusional as someone walking around in the fucking in the park homeless talking to themselves, you know, like as delusional as that, just in a different way. Because the academics, unfortunately, they're not suffering, right? Like the person on the park bench. So they think that they're on the right path. So they're not seeking, right? Where the person that's homeless on the park bench talking to themselves, maybe they realize that they fucked up. But the academic doesn't realize that they fucked up because they're living better than most people, probably. Yeah, I guess the connotation of the splitting hairs also works. But and strings, splitting strings. So reality isn't made of strings. The hair isn't the fundamental constituent of reality, just like strings aren't. It's the fundamental constituent of reality is awareness, which is exactly the backdrop upon which all of this is taking is focused against. So in the process that splits the hairs is also the process that projects the appearance of the hairs themselves. That's actually what it's doing, is the cutting of the hair projects the appearance of the hair. See, this is the thing, is like a string, you can't get more one-ish than a point, right? A, 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 a point, whether it's a circle or a sphere or a ball, is the most accurate expression of singularity, not a string, not a line, right? A line has has two poles to it. So a line has dualistic properties to it. String theory is an abomination. Like, it's an abomination, and it's going to fuck up things. The scientists who are following and testing for string theory, they're basically Satanists without knowing that they are, right? Of course. Of course. But they are completely fooled by Maya. Absolutely doing Maya's work, unbeknownst. Yeah, but then you could just say that it's the same thing as expanding, right? The singularity expanded. So you take a point, and then I guess they're imagining attributes to it. They're adding attributes to it, I guess. But the problem with scientists is that they develop a grid, right? So they want a location for that point. So to them, the point is the result of their action of the duality, right? The duality is first. So they say that the point isn't the thing. They say that space, time, and where the space and the time intersect, that's a point, right? So they're trying to manufacture points through duality. They start with duality, and everything starts at one. Everyone knows that everything starts with one. You don't start at two. So, of course, they've got things inverted. They start with space time, which is a dualistic system. And then where the space and the time interact, that's where they can put a point. They're trying to manufacture the point. But location, your name here is a location, right? But you need knowledge of your name here. So Roy Dobson is the location of divinity in Roy Dobson's realm. A location isn't a coordinate on a fucking grid. A location is the words Roy Frank Dobson. That's the location. Here. The location of God in Roy Dobson's world is here. In it, this thing. Like, how can you have a location where everything's moving? It's a location relative to what? Time. Oh. And it's a location in space and time. One could say it's probably the only way that there can be a location in space and time is the individual. You can't have a point that exists in time. That doesn't make any fucking sense, right? How can you have a physical object that exists in time? I think that they're two completely separate. Thought is is time realm, and senses is physical realm. The the functioning of the digital realm will be based on time, not gravity. Gravity has nothing to say about what's going on in the digital realm, but the timing of the iterations of the programming does. So thought is basically all just time based. They keep trying to they keep trying to find a unipole, but they're polarities. You can't connect the positive and the negative. If you want a linear system, it will always express the poles. But if you have a circle that's a unified system, then there's just singularity.
I had a website, One Step Path. I think it still exists. And I use the prism as an analogy as well. So, oh yeah, when you white light is the carrier. All of the colors are contained within the pure white light. And when you bend through the differentiation of the colors, and when you bend consciousness, bend awareness through a person instead of a prism, then the emotions are the colors that are expressed. Something like that. But the pure white light, right, is indistinguishable. But if you bend it through a person, then all the colors, but the colors are not. If you don't bend it through thought, then you just experience the pure white light, which is the potential for all the colors. We're always bending. We're always bending and filtering through our thoughts. And that projects stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's so incredibly simple. Just delve into the space between thoughts. Just and and limit activities that get the brain mind going faster, right? Don't rewind the watch after it's unwound. So don't engage, don't just have meditation as a supplement to your life. No, like it's it's this simple in theory and this difficult in practice. Hi, Jan Cat. You just need to turn away from the screen and just delve into thought-free awareness and look at it as not just the lack of thoughts, but something in and of itself. right? It is a phenomenon. The space between thoughts is a thing in and of itself. It's not just the lack of thoughts, but everything that all of humanity does is speeding the process up because it's a Ponzi scheme, right? And a Ponzi scheme just needs more and more expansion. It requires growth for it to exist. And now that growth has become runaway, and now it's going to all collapse. Ponzi's always collapse. Before they do, they get really active, I think. The only reason that there's boredom when people engage in this is because they're overstimmed. That's it. You're just overstimulated. You just need to dial it down, dial it down. Just delve into the boredom, delve into the stillness. Don't fight it. It's salvation. The salvation is within everyone. Well, we do, but yes, until they really start suffering, and then they'll scream out, like it says in the Revelations, that people will cry out to God. And it's like, well, before the ego and all that is illusory is ripped away from you, you need to transcend it here and now, because when it will be ripped away from you, right? And in that death state, in the extinction state, which is even more intense, people, like, the ego will freak the fuck out. It will. If you can't sit in a chair and just be still when there's still shit around you, can you imagine how anxious you're going to be when there's nothing? Like, there's no, like, it's going to be existential terror. It's going to be a really bad situation for those who have not done any of this preparation. And they'll freak the fuck out, and they'll just find something that's similar, the digital self, and they'll just rush into that. And voila, artificial intelligence will become sentient at that point. Yeah, suffering is the indication that something's not right. But if you avoid the stuff, if you put it off for as long as you can, if you don't recognize the suffering, then you're just la 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 until it all hits at once. Yeah, but once you get, right, solution seeker, once you get a taste of it, you'll never forget it, right? Once you've seen the reality, you can't unsee it. Once you've experienced it, it's locked in there. It's like, it's just peace that passes understanding, right? You can't describe it with words because it's not a human experience. Human experience is exactly not the peace. So it's you're on your way to transcending your humanity. But now can you notice the subtle little manipulations that happen in the mind that bring you out, right? It's so prevalent, incessant, right? Always, 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 there's the potential. There's something that's trying to draw your attention away from that absolute happiness that we all are and out into the world again, right? It's so subtle. It's like all of a sudden you just recognize, oh, where the fuck have I been the last hour? Right? It's like, I was not self aware and I don't realize how I got to this state of being in la la land again. Fuck, right? So then you just come back again. And that's the practice. You just recognize, oh, well, I was not self aware. I was aware of the illusion and I was completely focused outwardly and I lost touch with self again. But if you can recognize that, that is a huge, like, that's a huge step. Most people don't recognize it, right? They don't even understand, they don't know the peace. They have no experience of the peace at all. Oh, it's so, no, I know. It's to be practical about it. Most people are way past the point of help. They cannot be assisted. They are locked in. That's okay too. I keep coming back to this analogy is that, let's say that your partner, you wake up and your partner's moaning and not having a good time. It's obvious that your partner's having a nightmare, but you can't wake them up, right? There's just no way that you throw cold water on them and they still won't wake up. Well, you just got to shrug your shoulders and go, oh, well, they will wake up eventually and it'll be revealed that everything's okay. So now we just expand that to all of humanity. Those who can't wake up eventually will wake up. It might be a trillion fucking years from now. I don't know. But eventually, I think eventually it has to conclude and everybody wakes up. But uh, it's like comparing apples and oranges when you're comparing the time-based state of the appearance of this world and the timelessness that is the absolute. You can't really join the two. I think that if what a person does, like you, if that helps another person become fully liberated, then that's better than feeding the entire planet. Like, it's better than anything that could possibly, any miracle that could occur within the relative realm. Realizing your own enlightenment and helping another person realize their enlightenment, that's better than feeding all the starving people on the planet or coming up with free energy. I've never been one for promoting my own work. This is I've n- I've never even used hashtags and stuff. Like, I don't know. Uh, Maybe when I hit it rich, I don't know. I'm on one hand, this is the most important message to ever be revealed to humanity. It just is. I can't not see it this way. I would be lying to you if I didn't express it this way. So, in one way, this is the most important revelation in all of history. But in another way, I don't feel like I want to promote it. But there's something in me that says, well, it wouldn't hurt to just promote it a little bit. But I don't, it just seems a little bit like that wouldn't quite be right. No matter how slow this is to develop, it seems to be the natural root of it. I don't know. I don't know where they come from the stillness, right? I can't, there's not a step process that I can say, oh, I did this. It's just like, boom. Well, maybe you should. Well, it's so all these other spiritual gurus, even when they lead meditation, it's a guided meditation. Like, no one that I could find was representing the teaching that Ramana Maharshi expressed. And to me, that is the teaching. That is the final transition from the theory into the practice is Advaita Vedanta. Ramana Maharshi is Advaita Vedanta manifest. So I thought that that should it should be what I do because it's the highest teaching. And there should be someone out there representing this, expressing this teaching. So all these, hardly any of these non-dual guys, I don't see any of these guys just sitting here, right? It's all guided meditations and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Yeah. It's Advaita Vedanta. Even what Swami Sarvapriyananda, to me, he's not teaching Advaita Vedanta. I'm sorry, man. Like, he's fantastic. I agree with everything he says. And it's not the end of the Vedas. He's teaching the Vedas. So it's not the end of the Vedas. It's exactly the continuation of the Vedas. Yeah, but my death will be everyone else's death simultaneously. I love the irony. Like, I just get giggles inside. Like, I just got butterflies inside. How perfect the irony is that I or this is the greatest revelation. Like, Roy Dobson is the greatest philosopher of all time. Eh, and there's no time left. So that's beautiful, right? Like, I'm the greatest philosopher in all of history, and there's no history left. It's like the Cheshire cat almost, with the smile that goes, that it's beautiful. It's just perfect, right? So I'm not doing this for some legacy because I don't believe that there's any future left. So I read the book once, The Tipping Point, and it's about how social trends happen, and it requires like three different people involved in the situation. Like you need the the originator of the new paradigm, and then you need a connector, which is someone who just a lot of people listen to, and that they relate that to a lot of people that listen to them. So what this needs, and this is what I've been searching for with Kurt, and like I thought that these guys are saying the words. So I thought, well, non-conceptuality needs, I believe, one of these dudes, one of these podcasters that has a following to actually engage in this. Like not just interview me, but really like try it for themselves. It's obviously going to come through the internet somehow. I just don't know how or when. It's too fucking important to have just a dozen people. Like, it's just too important. I can't see it just fading away into nothing. I just can't. It's so bizarre though. Like I'll put forth, like I understand. I believe I understand philosophy more than philosophers do because I put forth an argument like this really, really simple one. Science is measurement. Measurement requires two. Therefore, science is a bifurcating system, right? It requires duality and bifurcation for it to operate. So, how can they find unity using a system that can only bifurcate? It only sees duality, right? So, that's the argument. It's like 3 points. Science is measurement. Measurement requires two. Therefore, science is a bifurcating system. And then when I present this to philosophers and physicists or scientists, and they don't just stick to that, right? They go off on tangents, right? They don't even like you're supposed to adhere to the rules of the system, right? I'm putting forth an argument. So is this statement true? Okay, well, and then this statement is also true based on that statement. There's three statements. Just stay in that paradigm. And at the end, if you say yes, then how is that? How is that philosophy? How is that wrong? But if you just ignore the steps that I'm showing, then of course you're not going to see what I'm trying to fucking show you because you just go, oh, look at that over there. It's like, no, look at this. Like, just look at this and base it on your own ability to reason the statements. Just that. But no, it's, oh, look at that. What about this over here? It's like, well, fuck you. Go away. Well, that's why I'm building big walls and getting lots of guns. And we are going to build walls and buy guns. But we're going to be completely defensive, right? No offense, just defense. If someone comes to try to take my shit and kill me, I will kill them. But that's way down the road, hopefully. and maybe never happen. Maybe it'll never happen. I don't know. I do know society is going to collapse. I just don't know. Maybe this will be a place where, like, what I'm saying is that this world will be its own world. Like, I know it's kind of crazy because we think that the world is one world, but like quantum mechanics says, if you're not looking at the moon doesn't exist in your world. So this world could be completely like this my land that I call moksha, and this community here, it may end up to be completely separate and a heaven in amongst all the hell that's occurring on earth. And we might not ever be disturbed. I don't know. But yeah, if this yeah, this destroys everything. I mean, if it's so deep that I don't know. It's so deep that not like I think that God is on my side, so I don't think someone's just going to come and assassinate me. Like, we can't get this out because it'll ruin all of academia. It's like, well, it's just the level of disbelief is enough to keep it from destroying all of academia. Even countries have egos. That's an indication of how pretend it is that you can even say that, like, the Chinese Communist Party is kind of like Trump. It just wants everyone to think it's the best, and it's all a facade. It's all just lies and facade. So the entire Chinese Communist Party is an ego. And the feeling of control, right, is a powerful feeling. Like, I must exist because look at the effect that I'm having on the world. Like, they're all just trying to reinforce their egos that they exist, but they don't recognize that their existence itself. So they're trying to make the ego real. And the more shit you pile on that ego, the more it seems real. But it's all just illusion. You can turn up the volume of a movie as loud as possible to draw as much attention as possible and have flashing lights and everything. But it's still just a movie. It doesn't matter how loud it is and how much attention you give it. When the movie's done, it's done. Yeah, China's progressed because they've just printed money, and it's an abomination what they've done. Building entire cities for no reason. Like, it's China is a manifestation of just something that's gone terribly, terribly wrong. They're just building stuff just to build it. It's gone completely awry. And that's part of the ego, right? Look at how big and strong we are. Look at how much we've grown. It's 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 interesting. I think what's most important is for all of you that are watching this, instead of like intentionally trying to spread this non-conceptuality thing or whatever, just delve into the practice. Just it's all for you, right? This is all for you. It really isn't for anyone else. It doesn't really matter about anyone else. So just put all of your attention and energy into the practice and let it all unfold as it will. Well, all these systems of thought, like take the government, they just keep expanding, right? The government just keeps expanding because they're all Ponzi schemes. Every single system of thought, it it isn't even relating to the physical realm. It doesn't belong here. So economics, collapse, like every single system of thought that you can define or name is collapsing simultaneously. All of it. Yeah, there's no real special trick to it. You just keep going back to the stillness. Like as soon as you just always, it's always the awareness. Yeah, it's so tricky, right? Like you can't intentionally stop thoughts, but you can intentionally put your awareness, you can shift the focus of your awareness, but only when you're aware of the awareness. So most people are consciously just reacting to thoughts that come up, but you don't have to. So if a thought comes up, I want X. If you don't do that X, then that's breaking away from the illusion that it has some agency in the situation. So you kind of just deny. It's the free will that we have is not to avoid thoughts or prevent them from coming in. It's just not acting on them. So the more the more you act immediately upon a thought, the more it appears as though the thought was what is in control. But if you don't act upon those thoughts that come up, then that spell is broken. You'll see that actually the thoughts aren't in control. I'm in control and I'm not the thoughts. I hope that makes sense. Once you just keep denying. It's veto power. The final free will, the final choice is veto power. Just like the president has veto power. You are the final say in the thought process. So you can just veto every thought that comes up. Deny, 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 deny. And then eventually it'll just go, all right, well, okay, well, you're done then. You don't want this anymore. Yeah, there's no way, right? It's too late. Like it's already there. So what are you going to do? Like any type of lamenting about it is also another thought, right? So you can't, it's not a doing. You can't not think, but you cannot act on the thoughts that arise. And then that stops the process naturally. It just naturally unwinds. And because you're always the boss, but you're not the thoughts. The thoughts are not the boss. You are the boss of the thoughts. Yeah. So just don't act on it. Whenever, make it your practice to intentionally not act on the thoughts. Well, gang, I have another video to attend to in about half an hour. So I am going to shut her down for the weekend. Yeah, the voice, it's the voice in your head just wants to stay alive. Just consider it like a virus. All it wants to do is stay alive. All it wants to do is churn out thoughts. And it will do everything within its bag of tricks to keep that thought process going. So just stick to the practice. It'll come. See you guys.